And so I'd like to introduce today's keynote. Today we have, kicking off the summit, we have Tanisha Martin. She is the executive director and chairwoman for Black Girls Hack. This is a registered 501c3 organization, and the goal is focused on sharing knowledge and resources with Black girls and women so that they can break through some of the barriers that might be there, preventing them from getting into information security. And so I'd like to have her come up to the stage here. She's going to talk about the Hacker's Guide to Mentorship, how to foster diversity in the workspace. And she has some really great tips on building a mentorship program in your organization.
Thank you, Barrett. All right, can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. All right, so I'm Tanisha Martin. Nice to meet you all. I am the executive director for Black Girls Hack, which is convenient as this is the place to be for hackers. My nonprofit, Black Girls Hack, is an organization that's focused on increasing diversity in cybersecurity by providing resources to help ease some of the barriers of entry to get into cybersecurity. Like Barrett said, we're a 501c3 organization that in the little over a year that since we've been started, we have trained thousands of people in cybersecurity. We've helped hundreds of people get certified. We flew out some of our members to DEF CON 29 through the generosity of Twitter, and we've reviewed hundreds of resumes. We are trying to train the next generation of ethical hackers, and after they get trained, they're going to need a job. So who am I? I am a Washington, D.C. native with a degree in computer engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. I have a master's in cybersecurity from Johns Hopkins University and an MBA from the University of Maryland. So that makes me an expert on education, pierogies, sandwiches with French fries on them, and seafood. So ask me anything. I'm also a consultant and penetration tester, adjunct instructor of cybersecurity and computer science, and I am leader of the squad at Black Girls Hack, something that I am most proud of. All right, so before I get started, I want to tell you a story. Last March, I participated in a program that's called Share the Mic in Cyber. This was the brainchild of Camille Stewart, Lauren Zabierk, and Caitlin Ringrose to increase the profile of Black cybersecurity practitioners. I was paired with two amazing allies, Trevor Hughes of the IAPP and the amazing Jennifer Santiago of SANS. The program pairs Black cybersecurity professionals with allies who use their platforms to help lift the voices of those who are not frequently heard. So it turns out that Jennifer is the director of content development and speaker management at SANS. And Trevor is the CEO and president of the International Association of Privacy Professionals, the world's largest information privacy organization with over 50,000 members. So I say that to say that it was no slight thing that these folks let me take over their social media for the day with over 12,000 followers between the two of them. And they spent the entire day talking about me and my work with Black Girls Hack. So that was absolutely amazing. And I think that it ties into a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So, but I'm going to put a pin in that because the real significance of this will become a little bit more obvious later. So when I was talking to Barrett about topics that I felt comfortable talking about here, the one thing that I knew I was not going to do was talk to a room full of penetration testers about penetration testing. My imposter syndrome will not let me do that, so I'm not going to sit here and waste your time. So they told me that I basically needed to either talk about something that was very highly technical, or that it'd be something that affects a large number of hackers. So something that affects a large number of hackers and basically everybody is mentoring and the functional and business impact that a lack of diversity has on our industry. So before I talk to you about why mentoring is important to your business and to you as pen testers, I want to talk to you about the lessons that have gotten me here today. There are three of them that I'd like to share with you guys. So if you'll bear with me. The first one is prepare. Preparation has always played a very big part of my life. Before I had the mind to start making decisions and doing things for myself, my parents made sure that I was in school, that I was on top of my books, if nothing else. I've had stints as a thespian in plays and as a school news reporter, and I played all of the sports in school. But when it came down to it, education was the thing that was most important in my family. So whenever I've found myself lacking in information, I've gone back to school, as you can probably tell by all of my master's degrees. So preparation involves school and studying, but it also includes surrounding yourself with the right people, the right information, and the right equipment. The one thing I can tell you that when me being here would not be possible without the efforts of all of the unofficial mentors who have adopted me, advised me, and then also connected me with their networks. The second lesson that got me here is resistance to adversity. Things happen, life happens, all of the things happen, and for a lot of people, when those things happen, their first instinct is to give up. I faced a lot of adversity in my life, coming up in Washington, D.C., and making my way to Carnegie Mellon University and Johns Hopkins University, purposefully some of the best schools in the country, because lacking mentors growing up, I felt like I had everything to prove. For anyone who's listening, my advice to you is to keep going. Don't let the bumps in the road, the kicks in the butt, or what seems like a crappy start in life keep you from shooting for the top. Or as my dad likes to say, Klingons take no prisoners. The third lesson I've learned is to loathe complacency. As I've achieved additional certifications or educations, additional knowledge, people around me have always questioned, when do you stop? And the answer is that I don't. And I don't think you should either. I think it's important to always have goals, to always have a plan, and to never get complacent. Complacency is about being satisfied with what you have, where you're at. And unfortunately, we're in an industry where the knowledge is changing daily, and we're expected to keep up not only with the times, but also with the technology and the information. So always have a goal, even if that goal is to never stop learning. So don't limit your abilities or your dreams or aspirations, or as Lorenzo Snow says, be better today than you were yesterday and better tomorrow than you are today. So as someone who is always plotting world domination and discussing with the next generation about their world domination plan, I talk to my squad a lot about developing a career roadmap, about finding somebody who's in the position that they want to be in, and finding out how do they get there. I realize that there's no one-fits-all size approach. We can use sites like LinkedIn to determine the requirements of the job, the experience that someone had in order to get there, and then also to make connections. So this was important for me when one of my mentors, Misty Decker, told me to go out and find people who were in the position that I wanted to be in. So my goal is to be the CISO of somebody's organization one day. So Misty asked me to go out and do 5 exploratories to find people who were in that position and to be able to talk to them and find out how they got to where they were. So for me, I think the hardest part of that was actually dropping into their DMs and asking them like, hey, can you spend 30 minutes to talk to me about your life, about how you got to where you're at? So for that, it was, basically me saying, how did you get here? What do you attribute to that? What would you say to yourself if you were starting over? Would you do it all over again? Because I think that the most important thing that we should take out of mentoring is that we should not be making the same mistakes of the people who came before us. The whole point of mentoring is to provide experience so that we don't have to keep making these same mistakes and we can get to where we're going more quickly and more efficiently. So if you're familiar with Pinky and the Brain cartoon, you'd know based on their many, many failed attempts that you have to have a real plan, a plan with milestones, resources, and connections. Connections that for the real go-getters in my squad that I'm willing to sell out. So why am I willing to sell out my network? Because research shows that mentoring is associated with a wide range of favorable outcomes. So outcomes such as behavioral, health-related, relational, motivational, and career-related. In fact, research has showed that academic and workplace mentoring has a greater effect on your lives than childhood mentoring. A study in the National Institute of Health showed that when a more experienced person, the mentor, takes an interest in and encourages a less experienced or disadvantaged individual, that the protege will benefit. I've seen this in my own life with my mentors along the way. People like Mary Galloway and Mary Cheney, who said, I see you doing this Black Girls Hack thing. I've done that with women's cyberjitsu and minorities in cybersecurity, learn from my experience without me having to ask them. People like Tyrone Wilson of Cover 6 Solutions and Thomas Maldonado of the NFL, who have taught and mentored me in both business and in cybersecurity. I've also seen that firsthand in the benefits of people like John Breath and InfoSec Sherpa and Merritt Bear, who have supported BGH through their networks and introductions to the right people. So the benefit lies of connecting my network in the protege's attitudes towards work, their job satisfaction, their job performance, and their level of commitment to their career. This research has very many interesting implications for me as someone who runs an organization trying to get people into cybersecurity, and I think for you as penetration testers, as business owners. Networks and connections are essential for success, and we need to go back to the basics of focusing on the well-being and human side of our workforce. So what we're seeing today in the industry is that corporations have a talent problem. There are approximately 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs, and cyber allegedly has a 0% unemployment rate. Despite this fact, anybody who is newish to the cybersecurity field will tell you that it is very hard to get your foot in the door. There's this elusive and secret combination of education, experience, and certifications that are needed even for an entry-level position. And when you get past, let's say, the 7 interviews or more, you're finding a culture that is still toxic and unsupportive, which is why employers are starting to see the start of the Great Resignation of 2021. The Great Resignation of 2021 is the informal name for the widespread trend of workers leaving their jobs during the pandemic. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks monthly figures for people for hiring and quitting, including numbers for people who have been fired, quit, or being laid off, as well as the correlation between that and being hired. So in a non-pandemic world, the hire and fire rates tend to be along the same lines, because generally as people find a new job, they quit the one that they used to work. But we're not seeing that in 2021. What we're seeing is that more people are leaving their jobs without having a new one because they're just fed up. So the Great Resignation, AKA the Big Quit, the industry is seeing that people are quitting their information technology sector jobs at higher rates. In March of 2021, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that over 16,000 more people quit their job than average. So the top 3 reasons people tend to quit: for career development, work-life balance, and manager behavior. So in a May 2021 article, according to several surveys, including the Microsoft Work Trend Index, up to 40% of people surveyed were wanting to change their jobs this year. And 26% of those folks were planning to change their jobs within the next 3 months. It's an employer's market, and long gone are the days of staying at a job out of loyalty when the environment may be toxic, not encouraging, or be limited in promotion potential. So there's been a shift in the culture of employees. and that there's also been a shift as far as the expectations. Employers are expected to be flexible, with flexibility leading to 41% higher likelihood that a candidate would engage with their company and 77% likelihood that they would actually stay with the company once they got there. Businesses are also expected to help with employees to rebuild connections, which we've largely lost due to COVID, provide more personalized recognition, and the ability to work with some cool technologies. Traditionally, not being in the office has been associated with a perception of a lack of actually doing work, a lack of connections. So 2021 has definitely changed that, and employees are now expecting more flexibility of for example, remote working, with the ability to be recognized for their work and still connect with their coworkers. But we all know that there's a difference between reality and expectations. For example, 1 in 3 employees feel disconnected to their leadership, and 57% of employees are engaging in fewer activities than before COVID. So what we're seeing is that people are not getting what they're needing. It's not meeting their expectations. And additionally, they're not even going outside. So your goal as business owners, as an industry, is to meet the expectations and the reality. And the benefits of meeting these expectations is huge. When an employee feels a strong connection to their team and to their leaders, then they are 30 times more likely to do great work, 3 times more likely to stay with the organization, and 96% more likely not to feel burnt out. The cyber industry has a talent problem, and the problem is the lack of effective mentoring programs within organizations, and the connections that they're missing are mentors. So Ruth Halcomb, in her 1980 book called Mentors and the Successful Woman, said, "To have a mentor is to be among the blessed. Not to have a mentor is to be damned to an eternal oblivion, or at least a mid-level status." So let's level set with a quick definition. So mentoring is a dynamic, reciprocal, personal relationship in which a more experienced person, the mentor, acts as a role model, a teacher, and a sponsor of a less experienced person. So I want to actually point out a couple of things on here that I think are important to this conversation. One, reciprocal, that the mentoring relationship goes both ways, and 2, a personal relationship. We talk a lot about mentors and what it is that we need from them, but we have to realize that with relationships in general, that it's a two-way conversation. You have to put in work and you have to receive work back. There has to be a two-way conversation, and your mentor has to be invested in you as much as you're invested in your mentor. So it's important that when people take on the role for mentoring, that the relationship is in fact reciprocal, and it is a personal relationship between those two people, not just a business transaction. So benefits for employers. There are a lot of benefits for employers if we actually get this right. Mentoring has a wide variety of benefits, including addressing the connection and the engagement problems that we're seeing with employees today. We can do that by increasing employee interaction, spurring innovation, and it helps to retain high potential talent. It also assists businesses in building their talent development goals, demonstrating a visible commitment to worker productivity, making mentees more informed about the organization, and my favorite, helping to transfer and maintain institutional specific information. So there's a certain way that you guys do the work that you're doing, and you feel like whoever's coming in doesn't know that, this is the opportunity for you to transfer that information to those people so that they can be trained in the way that you want them to be trained. But also it makes good business sense as it increases job satisfaction, and motivated employees are more likely to do better work. So for the employees, the benefits are numerous as well. It provides mentees with inspiration to build their professional development and accountability plans. It helps them build strong networks and improves their communication skills, their goal setting, and their self-confidence. I experienced this firsthand in the Share the Mic in Cyber campaign this past October. My ally / mentor, Rachel Tobeck, was absolutely amazing. She helped me identify goals that I wasn't quite articulating She helped me connect with some awesome people. And then the day that we had for the Share the Mic and Cyber campaign, she used her network to help raise $16,000 for our kids program. But the real benefit for me was seeing a female hacker who was not only surviving in the industry, but was also thriving. Also seeing her social engineer all of her reporters' travel points live on the news was very inspiring. So I know a lot of folks are probably thinking, we've already got a mentoring problem, or we've already got a mentoring program. Why are we talking about this? So while many organizations have mentoring programs, I think 70% of Fortune 500s actually do. Not surprisingly, these programs are not effective. Some of the reasons why: the mentors are many times not invested in the mentoring program and don't have the incentive to put the work in it takes to build a relationship. Again, this is a reciprocal two-way relationship, so there has to be that relationship piece. When mentoring does happen in these situations, it tends to happen organically, or it's because the mentor has seen personal traits in the mentee and sort of taken them under their wing. So we know that because recent studies across multiple industries and sectors reveal that only half of professionals have ever done any formal mentoring. And of those, only 25% were for formally assigned mentors. So for the people who don't have the opportunity or don't organically find mentors, the programs, the mentoring programs represent an opportunity to find somebody that can provide direction for your career. Direction like, what salary you should be asking for, direction like for things that you should be asking, as far as the work-life balance, things of that nature. Unfortunately, a significant amount of research has shown that cross-racial and cross-gender relationships can not only have difficulty forming, but they can have difficulty developing and maturing. So you can imagine that other cross-diverse relationships have equal difficulty. The reason is that in addition to having a mentoring problem, organizations also have a diversity challenge. The challenge associated with building a mentoring team is that the things that differentiate us are also the things that are sensitive to talk about. When we're talking about diversity, we're not just talking about Black and white. We're talking about age and gender, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, neurodiversity, and economic status. We're talking about a workforce that is made up of people with different viewpoints, different backgrounds, ideas, perspectives, and different approaches to problem solving. When it comes to most companies' mentoring programs, it's not hard to see that the leaders that make up the programs are not reflective of the people who are aspiring to get into those roles. Additionally, many of the people who are doing mentoring have not actually had effective mentoring in their lives, so they have no behavior to model their activities. Because of the difficulties associated with the cross-diverse relationships, you can see that mentoring programs of the future need to be able to foster diversity as well as effort. So you must be saying, all right, we've got our mentoring program. Bad mentoring is definitely got to be better than no mentoring. The answer to this is actually no. Bad mentoring has gotten, mentoring research over the last 50 years or so has shown that poor mentoring can be worse for an employee than no mentoring at all. Poor mentors negatively affect the mentoring brand, and it also affects the company's reputation and commitment to employee satisfaction. So if someone has a bad experience with mentoring and they tell someone else, that helps to ruin the effect, that the positiveness that mentoring can actually bring. It can also, for the business, sabotage retention, commitment, and employee development, all of the things that it's supposed to promote. So businesses today are increasingly global. And if their workforces don't reflect that trend, represent cultural and gender diversity, it's likely that they're not achieving their fullest potential when it comes to their bottom line. Since 2015, McKinsey has produced an investigative series on the business case for diversity. Their findings from the latest research shows that the relationship between gender and cultural diversity, most of the time measured separately, on executive teams, and the likelihood of financial outperformance has strengthened over time. So what this means is that companies that are more diverse are making more money and are more likely to hit their financial targets. So, but what we're actually seeing in the industry is that most companies are not making any real change to diversity numbers when it comes to those statistics. So while most companies are making little to no progress, the ones that are seeing their likelihood for financial performance increase by as much as 36%. This outperformance was found in both gender and culturally diverse organizations. So having diverse penetration testing teams, for example, has additional benefits. It makes the applicant pools for mentors more diverse and reduces some of the growing pains associated with having cross-diverse teams. But I've got some possible solution to our diversity and mentoring challenges. But let's hone into some of the issues that are specific to our pen testing community. So the first question that you're probably saying is, who has the time for mentoring when we're only given, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks per engagement? Or we're doing it now. How do you know we're not doing it right? Some of you may be saying, I'm not a hiring manager or a people manager. Why is this my problem? And what can I do? And as a company, you may be saying, well, what can we do to fix this? So I've developed an action plan. The first question, who has the time for mentoring when we're typically only given 2 to 3 weeks per engagement? So if more people, more senior people specifically on the team, take on the additional role of mentorship, this also helps to shift the knowledge within the organization. It makes proteges more informed and reduces training costs because the mentor is helping the protege learn through one-on-one interactions. So this serves a couple of purposes. It helps to increase the employee engagement. It helps the junior people to gain practical advice and encouragement. And it helps the more entry-level people learn from the experience of others. So for the people, for the company, this increases the level of experienced people that are available for future engagements. So when you're scheduling pen tests, project managers typically will put a mix of junior and senior people on the project. The greater the number of person weeks, the greater the mix. But if we're honest, senior pen testers are both in short supply and high value. So our plan is to get more senior people involved with mentoring, and we're going to incentivize it by building mentoring into the schedule and rewarding people who do it well. So senior mentors are paired with a mentee for each engagement. Think of this like a teaching hospital where we're letting the residents loose, but with adult supervision. I also kind of think about this as a see one, do one, where the junior pen tester, after learning the approach and tools necessary, can then be able to second seat or lead similar engagements in the future. And as for scheduling, we can assume that the mentor is 3/4 of a person for a person week, and we can assume that the other quarter is spent mentoring, where they're still working on the project, but the other time is help showing the mentee. All right, so the next issue that's specific to our lives is we have a mentoring problem now. How do you know that we're not doing it right? So more than, I mentioned before, more than 70% of Fortune 500 companies have a mentoring program of some sort. But a recent study of 3,000 professionals showed that only half of those people have ever had mentoring, and only 25 of those were formally assigned mentors. And the two biggest issues that we see in mentoring program post-mortems were mentors who were too busy or otherwise disinterested in the mentoring process, and or mentors who lacked training. So we're in the middle of the Great Resignation of 2021. 40% of employees are looking to change jobs, and 26% of employees are looking to change job within the next 3 months. So that survey was actually taken in May, so those employees may have already left. We also know that it's not working because 5 decades of mentoring research shows that people who have strong mentors have higher salaries, greater organizational commitment, higher satisfaction with their job and their career. So if your mentoring programs were actually succeeding, your employees would be well paid, well valued, and not looking to change jobs. The problem of just having a mentoring program is that there are both good and bad ones. Bad mentoring programs sabotage retention, commitment, and employee development, and the good ones provide the employees with what they need to stick around. So the next thing that you might be saying is, I'm not a hiring manager. Why is this my problem? Well, I think it's your problem because 57% of companies are changing their penetration testing firms every 3 years, and job stability is important. It's important that you work with diverse teams to continue to add value to your clients, It's also your problem because as men, and 80% of the penetration testing industry, your voice matters. And the more diversity has been shown to result in higher pay and higher job satisfaction. So if you have a largely homogeneous group of pen testers, your findings will likely be the same. Your methods and approaches will be the same, and no surprise, your results will probably be the same. So by doing the same things that you've always done in the same way that you've always done them, you fail to find anything different. So groupthink has real consequences in a pen testing world. Penetration testers must attempt to predict behavior patterns and make assumptions about how the user is expected to engage. Attackers only need to find one way into the system and are global in their approaches and motivations. So pen testing teams need to have diversity to help foster the environment of learning, to gain different perspectives on the way attackers approach getting into the system, and to spur innovation. It's critical that pen testing teams are as global and diverse and the attack vectors that threaten them. So what can you do? You can recommend a mentoring program to your organization. You can recommend corporate diversity initiatives. You can make it a point to submit gender or cultural minorities for open positions. And you can volunteer, give back, and mentor the next generation of penetration testers. So as a company, what can we do? I've tried to make the correlation to provide a link between the diversity challenges as well as the mentoring challenge. So I think that as companies, you need to revisit your recruiting methods to try to work with diverse nonprofits in your industry to help develop a pipeline to employment, implement a mentoring program that provides incentives to help keep the program successful, and consider hiring junior pen testers and training and mentoring them. Also, I think that you should change your approach to mentoring. But if you do this, your benefits are great. Mentoring lets you show that you're willing to invest in your employees. It makes employees more informed about your organization. It reduces training costs if the mentee is learning on the job. It helps you achieve your talent goals. And for the people who care about money, companies with diverse teams are twice as likely to hit their financial targets, and diverse companies produce 19% more revenue. Also, your future employees care about diversity. So I want to tell you a story about why your mentorship program isn't working. So in 2020, the Harvard Business Review released an article called Why Your Mentorship Program Isn't Working. In it, it talks about the Master Mentoring Program. So this was created at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine around 2012. They were having issues as far as their junior faculty members, and particularly women, who were feeling invisible and unsupported in their departments. The school had a mentoring program. However, the competitive of the school made it so that they more prioritized presenting research than in actually participated in the mentoring program. So to resolve this, they created a mentoring program called the Master Mentor Program that made the mentoring process competitive and it accompanied it with perks and recognition. So one, they had mentoring candidates. There was an application process where the mentoring candidates have a strong record of informal mentoring. So imagine an application process with essay questions and a letter of recommendation to become the mentor, mind you. Number two, there was a selection committee where the best candidates from each department were selected. The mentors were routinely met for mentoring skill building workshops and case discussions. And three, certifications were issued, allowing the mentors to take on more proteges. And four, each new year, a new cohort of mentors was selected and trained. So the Master Mentor Program ended up being wildly successful, but not just for the women and junior faculty. The result ended up being better job performance, high productivity, and the proteges were actually more likely to mentor in the future. So one of the areas that the Master Mentor Program focused on was learning about the mentees and discerning their dream, helping the mentees to imagine the possibilities that generated excitement to them to help them to achieve their future dreams. So in Black Girls Hack, we call that the World Domination Plan. When people join Black Girls Hack, we ask them to hop into the World Domination channel in Slack and introduce them and their plans. So the purpose of this is twofold. I want the squad to be able to see that there are other people who are interested in some of the same things that they are. And I also want them to know that they're not alone. But the second reason is that my memory is bad and I want somewhere to refer back to when we have opportunities that align with their goals. All right, I try to help them to fight imposter syndrome and encourage them to lift as they rise, meaning that as they learn new skills or tools, that they're taking the time to demonstrate those tools to other people with similar interests. This provides them with teaching moments and helps them to get confidence in their hands-on skills. I also tell them to develop a relationship with other people and to network and make connections. So for the squad, while I'm telling them to make connections, the research says that statistically, the positions that they're trying to apply for don't have people who look like them. If they're a woman or non-binary, they may be the only person who looks like them on their entire team. And if they're older or economically disadvantaged or neurodiverse, they may have a different learning style or background, which is why we need you to focus on your mentoring programs for the diverse workforce of the future. Yes, pen testing is about repeatable processes, but the pen testing teams for the future require a diverse workforce that finds different approaches to changing threat landscape. And the evidence is clear. You can improve your bottom line by making your organizations more diverse and by providing them with amazing mentors. So back to Share the Mic and Cyber. My ally, Jennifer Santiago, is the Director of Content Development and Speaker Management at SANS. So this is important because we're at a SANS conference. She's also the person that offered me the opportunity to be here today. The Share the Mic and Cyber campaign is an example of an effective mentoring program and is a blueprint for what people can do to make a difference. The campaign gave me mentors that helped me get my start in penetration testing and reach for goals that I didn't think were possible. Their mentoring helped me to grow in my career, helped me to become a better instructor, a better mentor, and to be able to give a keynote at the SANS Pen Test HackFest conference. So imagine what the next generation of penetration testers can do if given the opportunity. So, little Black girl in me from Northeast Washington, DC, wants to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I'm here and I deserve to be here. And there are people coming behind me who deserve to be here too. The squad is coming to a pen testing team near you, to a SOC team near you, and to a boardroom near you. And when we get there, we'd appreciate cookies and a good mentor. Thank you.